really, when I was writing the book, it was very therapeutic. It was lovely to write something and it was just pouring out of my heart. So I really enjoyed writing.
Was there a no-go zone? I asked her this. I remember speaking to Neena Gupta about her book, about her own life. And she said, there are so many episodes in my life that I've not written about because I don't want people to make fun of me.
And sometimes people make choices to stay with that person, and sometimes people make choices not to stay with that person. And sometimes people take a lot of, I don't want to use the word shit, but they take a lot of crap.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, I must say. It gives me immense pleasure to see all of you all who turned up at 11. Thank you very much for waking up early. Another one, Shenaz.
Yes.
It's such a pleasure to speak
Thank
to.
you.
I would say she was my girl crush while growing up. And Shenaz was like all things bubbly. She was like a VJ, MTV VJ, long before Netflix and Amazon Prime entered her life. She was like the portrait of cool. And she was really vivacious. So that's what I remember most about her. Then I did not know that you were an author. You had it in you to write. So, and she's come up with this amazing, amazing book. Such a fun read called All He Left Me Was a Recipe. So, I mean, going by the title, it's quite self-explanatory. It's about her dating escapades. But there's a disclaimer. She says it's part fiction, part truth. So you're a bit of a tease in this, aren't you, Shenaz?
Yes, so All He Left Me Was a Recipe is a book about this girl's dating escapades, okay? And it starts when she was 4 to 40. So every guy that she meets along the way, not every single guy, but the guys who left her some kind of life lesson, some kind of recipe. Now, I said part fact, part fiction because it is part fact, part fiction. Some I made up and some are real, and it's up to you guys to decide which one is real and which one is not real.
Right. The book is now available at stores. It's just launched at KLF as well. What I loved about it is while I was reading the book, I kept wondering whether did the guy, the Bollywood star that you dated, was he really the fictional guy or was he the real guy? And I kept Googling. So that's what I love about the book in the sense that, you kept the readers guessing.
Yeah.
Was that your motive as well?
Yes, so I wanted to write a book which was also part imagination and part, you take things from your real life and then you embellish it. And that's, I think, what good writing is, I hope. So I really, when I was writing the book, it was very therapeutic. It was lovely to write something and it was just pouring out of my heart. So I really enjoyed the writing process for it. And what was your question?
Just what was your motive behind coming up with this book?
What was my motive? So I felt that in life, every time I thought about like, oh, this happened, this event, it was always like, oh, and then I was with that guy at this time. So I was like, wow, I actually think of my life events from who I was with at that time. So I thought about writing this book, and I always hang out with my friends and tell them funny dating stories, and they always kept telling me, you should write a book. And so I wrote a book.
That's impressive. She's got impeccable taste in travel and food, but when it comes to the men in her life, I must say, and I don't even know if it's her or the protagonist, she's got very questionable taste. I mean, it's like 50 shades of dark for most men. How did that happen? Is there no guy called the perfect guy out there?
I don't think there's any perfect human being out there, and all of us have white, gray, black, all colors in us. So that's what the book is about, and it's also to remind you that, sometimes after a breakup, you get so down and so depressed, and me too. After having so many breakups, I should be the best breakup upper. I should be a breakup expert, but I'm not. Every breakup gets harder and harder. So the motive was to remind me and the audience that, hey, there's always another chapter. There's always something else on the other side. So don't worry. And every breakup actually, see, we always think of our relationships like, oh, the beginning is amazing. Then we sleepwalk our way through the middle of it. And at the end, we always feel like it's the worst time of our life. But actually, these worst times make us who we are, right? So that's what the book is about. The growth that this character has through every breakup.
That is true. In fact, there's one chapter where the Twin Towers in New York, it's crashing down, and you're having the worst relationship with one of the men in it as well. It's lovely that you intersperse a real-life tragedy as well to what's happening in your life. I mean, was that a coincidence? And I like the way you wove in real-life events to your own
yeah, because
chapters.
it's a timeline, right? It's 40 years of like this person's life. So there were times where, it was, good times, bad times, life events, the Twin Towers fell down, COVID happened, so many things happened. So of course we have, I wanted to weave in real life events with what was happening in her life as well.
Right. What's your process like, Shenaz? Like, are you this morning person who writes on an empty stomach and goes into this dark space, you can't have sunlight, etc., or do you have a process at all? You're very bubbly, by the way. So
I need sunlight. I can't function without sunlight. So my process is completely the opposite. I actually like writing in the afternoon. So I looked forward to that. I would get up, I would have my lunch, then I would go to my favorite cafe. There's a terrace with a sea view in Mumbai. I'd sit over there in the heat like this, sweating away, and I would write with a cold coffee. And that was my process. And really, I really enjoyed writing. So I hope people love this book, and I hope I can write more books after this, because I love it.
I know, and some of the characters in these books are so interesting. My favorite is when she was 19, when her protagonist, or Shenaz, I don't know, was 19 and she meets this man, her first love of her life. She calls him the Burj Khalifa. And it's the tallest building in the world, and that man stood tall in terms of values, in terms of treating her well. So I thought Burj Khalifa was my favorite guy. He was a keeper, but you wanted other things, or your protagonist wanted other things.
He was a keeper. Sometimes you meet the best person in your life, but you meet them at a wrong time. So, of course, she met him when she was 19. He was great, and he was the best boyfriend she ever had. But then she also felt like, hey, I want to see the world. I want to date other people. I want to see what's out there. So, of course, she missed out on him, and he very nicely, actually, he did the best thing for her. He let her go. And then she went forward to meet other people. And then the disasters happened.
She follows a certain pattern in the book where she talks about the men, her experiences with them, and then 3 thank yous, what they taught her and taught the protagonist. And she is sorry for doing certain things to him, 3 other things. And where is he right now? I love that it was very structured. In journalism school, we are often told, keep it simple and stupid. It's called the KISS technique. And I think you followed it to the T. Really, like you kept it very, not simplistic, but simple. Yeah. So that was very interesting. Was that did you go to a J school perhaps?
I did actually.
Actually,
when I was at MTV, I used to go in the evening to journalism school. But I actually feel that even when I read something, I want to read something simple that's an easy read, that's a breezy read. And one of my inspirations was Bridget Jones' Diary. I read it when I was a teenager, and I was like, oh my God, this is the best book. If I ever write a book, this is how it will be. And then, of course, I didn't have any life experiences then, and now I do. And so I just wanted it to be a page turner, an easy read. And also I make videos for a living, right? These travel videos. And I realized that people want it simple. They don't want this flowery language. They just want to see something that's easy and turn the page.
Right. Yeah. What I love about the book is that you haven't over-intellectualized your breakups. Very important. Because when you write about yourself, you tend to make yourself look smarter. The men a bit
Who said it's me?
No, but good job on that. Well done, you.
Thank
but
you.
Was that easy as well? Not perhaps justifying your actions. Because there are many parts in the book where the protagonist, like Bridget Jones' Diary, is very fallible, very vulnerable, not very likable either. Mm-hmm. So was that one of the reasons?
Yeah, she stumbles a lot along the way. And that's why I did not write it in first person. I wrote it in third person. So I wanted to have this view, the non-judgmental view from up here, like, hey, these are the events. And the thing about that, one of the other reasons I wrote this book is I realized I have a goldfish memory for faces and names. But what I remember always are conversations. I always remember what people said or what I spoke to somebody and how I felt at that time. And I realized like all my memories were that. And that's why this book is very conversational, very dialogue-like. In fact, my editor, when I first wrote it, she said, this looks like a screenplay. It's just so much conversation. And she kept telling me, no, write it like a book. Don't write it like a screenplay, which was actually hard for me to do because I really love talking like conversation.
That's true. If Netflix or Amazon or any other platforms are watching, I'm telling you, you've got a ready-made screenplay, but it kind of lends itself as well, right? Because it's so conversational. What I loved about the book, it's also non-judgmental. Because we come from a society where women, let's say, we talk about our dating escapades, or we talk about our desires, our sexual desires, you're immediately branded, you're labeled as somebody not so nice. I don't want to use the word. It starts with S and finishes with T. So that did not happen with this book. I thought,
well, I hope not. I mean, right now the book is just out, so I hope people don't label me as an SLUT.
wow. Okay, I was just trying to avoid
No,
that.
it's okay. But it's just life, right? Things happen along the way, and you meet different people. And anybody who says that is not, I mean, either you lead the conventional life where you get married at 22 and then have children, and that's your life, or I have led a very unconventional life. And for an Indian woman to lead a very unconventional life, have different relationships, longer relationships, but things don't work out. Sometimes they work out, and sometimes even when you're married, things don't work out. And sometimes people make choices to stay with that person, and sometimes people make choices not to stay with that person. And sometimes people take a lot of, I don't want to use the word shit, but they take a lot of
Crap. They're not doing very well.
Or they choose not to. So it depends. Like it's all, you are a sum of your choices. And this protagonist is a person who decides, like, she does take a lot of crap as well, but then things don't work out, and she's resilient, and she moves on to the next chapter.
Right. It's just keep walking. I think that's what.
It's just like just keep going. And you know what? There's always a next chapter. And after the dark, there will always be light. There'll always. So even if you're down in the dumps, the guy has cheated on you. You feel like shit. There will be 6-7 months later, you'll meet somebody else, and you'll have stars in your eyes again. And that's what I hope. Because a lot of people write to me as well, and they say, I went through a breakup and I don't think I'll ever be myself again. And it's not true. Because after, time heals everything. And that's really the message of the book.
Right. Another recurring theme, I thought, Shenaz, was the theme of cheating. Yeah. Either you have been cheated upon, or perhaps you have cheated as well. Is there a particular reason why? I mean, why did you take that particular theme? And it's a strand that runs throughout the book. And you don't see the red flags either. That's what I found quite fascinating.
The protagonist doesn't see red flags, just as in life, when you really like somebody, you don't see the red flags. In fact, you make a lal dupatta out of the red flags, or you have lal churis out of the red flags.
That's a line from a book. I love that line.
Yeah. So, in terms of cheating, yes, people get cheated on. People sometimes, when relationships are not going well, they end up, liking somebody else because things are really bad in this, and they don't have the courage to leave, but then they actually start, talking to somebody else, and that's how that happens. So I would say it's not there's no judgment in this book, and it's not a blame game, because I think when that happens, that means something is wrong in your relationship, and both parties are equally to, I wouldn't say blame, but both parties have part in it. There's no oh my God, that person cheated. Yes, of course, there is, but not 100% blame on that person.
Right. That's one very interesting thing. You have not male bashed in the book, which I think takes a lot of grace and grit, because they've done some terrible things, at least going by the chapters that I read. But you were forgiving, and also you learned something from it. Is that how you approach life, and did you include that philosophy in the book?
Yes, absolutely. And that's how life is, right? You have a great relationship, and you have so many nice moments with somebody, and then things go bad after a while, but then you break up, and then you think about all the bad times when you break up, but then 2 years later, or maybe even 3 months later, you start looking at it like you remember only the good things. That's when you're sad. You're like, oh, I remember this. You forget why you broke up. So actually, I always write a list of things to remind me why I broke up, because I always forget.
I like that.
Yeah, and then you become friends with the person in the future. That happens.
Right. Shenaz, one thing that I liked about the book is that you're friends with your exes. ask any narcissist abuse recovery coach or any such person, or your psychologist or your therapist, they say stay away from the ex. But here she is, either friends on Facebook with him, etc. So is it always a good idea to stay? Are you just normalizing?
So she, the protagonist, is not always friends, but they're still friends on Facebook, they're still friends on Instagram. When they see each other on the road, they say, hey, how are you, what's up? So not like friends, but they're cordial to each other. Not all of them. There are some, like Humble, that she's not friends with at all. They're not in touch. They're both blocked out of each other's lives. So it depends on the relationship. I think depends on the intensity of the relationship.
That's true. Speaking of Humble, I thought he was a very fascinating character as well. Now, they don't have great sex. That's the problem. That's the deal breaker. The physical chemistry just doesn't work, but mentally they connect. But yet, he was cheating on her as well, right? The protagonist. So there you go. And that's where Humble comes in. That's a chapter. How difficult was it to write that chapter? Was it triggering for you, Shenaz?
Yes. And firstly, let's explain to them what Humble is. Let's explain to them the character names. So obviously, there's no name in the book, but every chapter. So this guy is called Humble because he is really smart, good-looking, intelligent, everything, but he just doesn't know it. And, he wears the same torn T-shirts, and he's just not really that flamboyant, selfie-taking guy. So he's called Humble in the book. So I have different names. The very tall guy who has good values, he's called Burj because he's the tall guy. Yeah, so that's the way we have names.
She also has the little brinjal guy. Just do the math. You know why. I like the sense of humor as well. So speak about Humble as well. Was it triggering for you to write those chapters?
Yes, it was triggering for me to write the chapters, but like I said, it's part fact, part fiction. Some of them are not, and I just wanted it to be very real with, yes, and you know what? Writing is so cathartic. It's like therapy. You're just writing and you're feeling it, and I think that's when I hope, because I don't know outside perspective because the book has just hit the stands, so I don't even know if it's good. This is my first book.
It's good. I can vouch for that, and I've read some terrible books, so it's definitely good. Shenaz, you have nothing to worry about as well. How did your parents take to the book? If I have my parents sitting right here in the second row there. If I wrote the book, I think they would treat me like an outcast, perhaps not give me the gold that they've been hoarding. What were their reactions, your parents' reactions to the book?
So I did not tell my parents I was writing a book, firstly. Then my dad saw the Penguin contract, and he said, are you writing a book? I hope it's not about your real life. And I was like, don't worry about it. And I just let it go. Then recently, I started publicizing it on Instagram, so my dad did see it. And then they were like, what is this book about? I was like, just forget about it. And then by mistake, I left a draft of the book on my desk, in my parents' home. And they happened to see it. And they opened up to the chapter where the girl has sex for the first time on her parents' bed. She sneaks the boy in when her parents are out of town. And that's the chapter that they opened. And my dad was so angry. I was just eating lunch somewhere and I got a message saying, I have read this chapter and what is this book about? Is this about your sexcapades? And I was feeling so horrible. I did not meet them for like 2-3 days. Then I went over and I tried to explain to them, but they were so upset that I actually called my editor. And I was like, I think I can't do this book because my parents are very upset. And she was like, what? You can't do that. And my friends were like, what are you doing? You can't not do the book. So it was like 2-3 weeks of me actually thinking, should I not release the book? Because my parents were my mom was like, I'll walk into the sea and, all that emotional blackmail.
Does she know how to swim?
No, my mom does not know how to swim. And my dad's the captain of a ship. And my dad was also, what will my people at tennis say? You are spoiling your name. And you know how parents are. And I was like, please, let it be. See, I did a movie called Delhi Belly a while ago. And when my parents watched the movie, they did not speak to me for 6 months. So I'm from a family where, like, when I did my first movie also, Ishq Vishk, my mom was ashamed because she's like, oh my God, you're doing movies, you should be working at a bank. So I come from that family. So I've always faced resistance.
Right. Have they changed their mind after reading the book?
They haven't read the book, but my dad stole a book from a carton because it came to my parents' house because, my permanent address is my parents. A penguin sent a carton of the books. My dad opened the carton and took it. And I was like, Dad, why did you take it? It's a book about my boyfriends. And he was like, no, but now the book is out. I need to read it and have an answer when people ask me.
I like it. They are armed and dangerous now, your parents, of course.
So I'm very worried.
Right. Was there a no-go zone, Shenaz? And I ask you this because writing about your men in your life, or fictional men, or even truthful, like it happened to you, it's not easy, right? But was there a no-go zone? I ask you this. I remember speaking to Neena Gupta about her book, about her own life. And she said, there are so many episodes in my life that I've not written about because I don't want people to make fun of me. I don't want to be the subject of ridicule or mockery. Did you face that fear?
I just wrote it actually without, when I was writing it, it was such a therapeutic process. I wrote it without thinking about other people. So when I wrote it, it was very like that, and it's embellished. It's part fiction, part fact. So I don't know. Yeah, there are a few chapters in my life that I do not talk about, maybe one or two. But I didn't feel like it was actually, I didn't feel like it was going with the book also. It was something else. So I didn't include it in this book. Maybe next one.
Okay, brilliant. I look forward to that one. And one thing I love about the protagonist is many women do that. Instead of like pursuing a serious career perhaps and just being goal-oriented, they're defined by the men that they meet, and they seek approval from the men that they date. Do you think that was, that's something that most women here or young men here, they're looking for the one and forget what are they here for really?
Yes, absolutely. Goal? And I think as the character progresses, she realizes that. In fact, there's a line in the book where she says, my career will never get up in the middle of the night and leave me, for another woman. But career will always stay, the men will come and go. So she does realize that, but a bit too late. Because she does give up a lot of her career as well for the men, but then one day she realizes that.
That is true. And the movie, not the movie, I'm sorry, I hope it's a movie.
Thank you.
I really hope. It's a Freudian slip. But yes, the book as well, if you look at it, touches upon violence towards the book begins on a very optimistic note. Things are great. There are some shady teenagers that she meets. But as the book progresses, it goes much darker. And you go back to the same people who were not good for you. You go back to them, etc. It becomes much darker.
You mean the character?
The character, of course. Yeah, we have to say, there's a disclaimer, it's the character, the protagonist, goes much darker. How did you address the issue of domestic violence, which are very, very intense and very, very serious topics? Yeah. But you wrote it with a sense of humor as well. Not an easy balance to strike, is it?
Yeah. So in one of the chapters, she does face a guy who actually pushes her and then is drunk and kind of throws her against the wall and stuff. And she walks out in the middle of the night in the freezing cold, because she's in New York at the time, in the freezing cold, minus 14 degrees, and she walks out not even properly dressed and goes to the police station and complains. And it's just how sometimes life is. It becomes really dark. And then she sees the humor in it, because then she's going in this police van to her friend's house, and she's like, I can't believe I'm in an NYPD car right now with all my belongings, going away from this guy I love to my friend's house, and what am I? I'm a girl from Mumbai. What am I doing over here?
Right. And I love the fact that at one point in the book, the protagonist says that I can't date a French guy, or why foreigners doesn't work for you because you're a girl from Bandra. Either he's too rich, or he's too white, or he's too dark. You know what I mean? Yeah. Somewhere along the way, are you still inside? The protagonist is still a girl rooted in Mumbai.
I think she does go and she dates different people from different, and that's why she leaves the first guy, the Burj guy, because she wants to experience different people. She lives around the world. She has different relationships, but I think her values are always Indian, and then she comes back and she feels like, now I want to date an Indian guy, maybe someone who eats rajma chawal or Alipi fish curry. But yeah, she's still to meet these people.
Yeah, I love it how all the safe and the good men in our life are like dal khichdi. But what if you want caviar? That's what her recurring theme in the book is as well, which is great.
I think men and women go through this. The thing is that we always talk about men feeling this way, but we never tell the truth that women also sometimes feel this way. And a lot of women, I think, who are married may read the book and feel like, wow, they are living through this character, like this is what their life maybe could have been if they didn't go this way. It's just like a choice.
Right, of Of course. And there's also a chapter in the book about the man cheating on you and how you don't see the signs. And in that you write that I made a red dupatta out of all the red flags, right? Why do you think women generally tend to ignore or the men generally tend to ignore this woman is not right for me or the man is not right for me?
I think when we meet someone, we like them, then we just don't want to see the red flags, right? Men and women, you don't want to see that. You're like, you make an excuse for it. I think all of us are guilty of that, correct? Yeah.
Of course, and there's also a strain of great sisterhood in this novel. But there's one chapter where you talk about your friend, your married friend calling you up or calling the protagonist up and saying, I can't come and stay with you. We don't have anything in common. I'm married with kids. What do I talk to you? You're single and available. I thought that really spoke because there are women sometimes are your worst enemies.
Yeah.
They judge more than the men in the society.
Yes, that does happen. And this happens as a recurring theme in the book, actually. There are good friends and there are friends who are there just to make you feel bad about yourself, and that happens. And even in the beginning of the book, that this girl, I don't know if you remember, but she calls up that guy that this girl is infatuated with and she's like, hey, what do you think about her? And he says,
true.
oh, buffalo butt. And her world shatters and she just says, oh, I think you need to lose weight. And she walks off. So sometimes women can be mean to women as well, and that's just the truth of life. Or sometimes, when she's a grown-up woman, she's like, hey, you know what, I have a family, I have kids, I don't know what to talk to you about. We have nothing in common anymore, and she walks off. So that also happens.
No, I like the fact that you immediately took a swift action and blocked her. Which I think men often, the protagonist has men blocking her, but for the first time she took an action. And I was very proud of her. At that point, I felt a case of reflected pride. She has some agency. Yeah. Do you think towards the end of the book, this protagonist has more agency?
Yes, I think she's found herself. So that is what it is. It's also a coming-of-age book because it starts when she's just 3 years old and the first boy she meets when she's in nappies, and that boy hits on her head and that was her first breakup. So that's the first boy. That has permanent effect on her. So that's the first relationship and it goes to obviously she grows up and she has, how life is. You see you grow up.
That's brilliant as well. And in terms of the title of the book, tell me, are you a foodie in general? I know you love travel. Yes. Tell us about the title of the book. How did you come up with it?
I'm a big-time foodie. Yeah, huge. And I think the character...
It doesn't show.
Well, the character talks about her struggles with weight and food and how she's always, battling that and trying to, you remember when she breaks up, the guy calls her a buffalo butt and then she works out like crazy and starves herself and when she's a teenager. So all these things. But yes, all he left me was a recipe. Why this name? Well, I was thinking about this book and I was thinking about writing a book like this and then strangely, under my doorstep, I found a book and it was a recipe book. And I was just thinking, at that time I had just gone through a breakup and I thought, and my friends who had gone through breakups were going through divorces and stuff and they were like, oh, we're fighting in court for this and that and then we got this from our husbands and all. And I thought, all he left me was a recipe. I have a recipe for a good Israeli salad. And that's when I thought about the name. I was like, all he left me was a recipe. It's a metaphor for life lessons.
Right, of course. And do you have a favorite guy in the book? Like a chapter that you thought, a guy you thought I didn't do justice to when you revisit the book?
That I did not do justice to while writing?
In terms of writing, yeah. I think there's more to him than what the reader can gather.
No. In fact, I think I embellished all the guys.
Did you?
I think I made them better than they were.
I love it. Oh my God, they were terrible. They were worse than this.
Not all guys were worse because she actually learns a lot. And that's something in the book I hope people get from it, is that she learns a lot from each guy. So she basically is someone who had this quench a curiosity. So for example, she learns how to edit, she learns filmmaking, she learns storytelling, she learns so many things from the people that besides the life lessons, she also learned practical lessons. And it's true, I myself always wanted to go to film school in the US, but I didn't come from a family that could afford it. And then I dated guys who actually went to film school and they taught me these things. And today I make videos, I edit, I tell stories. And I think along the way, it's also these guys who encouraged me, who told me, hey, you're more, maybe they said it in a bad way, like, oh my God, you're just a VJ, what do you know? But then that encouraged me to be like, oh, you know what, I can do more, I can do more. And so she had very supportive men in her life too, and I put that as well. And there's white and black and gray and everybody. So I hope that comes out in the book. It's not all horrible men. In fact, they're all great men who sometimes do terrible things, but then so does she. You know, everybody, all of us are like that.
I think there's nothing called perfect lovers. It's more about finding perfection in imperfection.
Yes, absolutely. There's nobody perfect. You just have to pick your, you know, what you can go with and what you can't. And what she discovers in the book is, for every relationship, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you need mental stimulation, you need emotional, you know, some emotional thing in it, and you need a physical connection. So mental connection, physical connection, emotional connection. Then you need shared values and all of that. So she goes through her life feeling like you never get all three. You always get them in different proportions. Right. You know, sometimes you'll get mental and emotional, but you won't get physical. Sometimes you'll get physical and emotion, but you won't get mental. And then you have to choose, like, is this really what I want? And that's how life is. You just have to accept what you get and make the most of it.
Have you figured it out after writing the book about, are you more careful, for instance? Is this like your dating tome? It's funny, you know, I called it the dating guide, but this is more a dating tome, and it's more a cautionary tale on what you don't want, men and women, in your life.
No, I don't think so. I feel like this is just slice of life. That's how I feel. I never thought of it as a cautionary tale. And also the protagonist goes through a lot of these, you know, she goes through it and she makes the same mistakes again. She does not see so we can talk about, like, you know, toxic, unhealthy, what is your relationship spectrum? Like, you have these chapter names in the book as well.
That's true. It's beautiful, yeah. In fact, her chapter names are very, very, you know, it says a story in itself. Like, what are the rules of a breakup? Have you figured that out? Or is marrying your first love a terrible idea? I think it is. But yeah, is there any logic in love? But my favorite one was, in this world of option, is monogamy too much to expect?
Yeah. So yeah, there are questions that we ask ourselves all the time, right? In this world of options, is monogamy too much to accept? Or what are the rules of breakup? Are there any rules in breaking up? Or, you know, what, give me,
yes.
Yeah.
Are our past lessons a blessing or a curse?
I'm not wearing my specs. Are our past lessons a blessing or a curse? You know, or is it time to stop questioning and start settling? These are things we always ask ourselves. And so even when I was writing the book, I wanted to answer these questions with a little story. So first, it's a question. The format of the book is, first is a question. So it's like, you know, are our past lessons a blessing or a curse? Then there's a story. Then there is a lesson she learned from that story, like whatever she learned from that lesson she learned. Then the things she misses, because you always miss something. Then there's three thank yous to the guy and a sorry. Because, you know what, we're both to blame when the relationship goes wrong, not just one person.
In terms of just the monogamy one, is it too much to expect? We live in an age of Tinder and Bumble, right? There's so many options. How do you, in this world, actually navigate or find the perfect one? Or should there be several perfect ones? What is your take?
So that's something she addresses a lot in the book, right? And I don't feel that there is the one, because the one could be perfect for you at 20. I don't know how that same one can be perfect for you at 40 and 60. I don't know. Some people luck out, and those people are the 1%. But most of the people just accept or go with the flow and keep going. There is no one. You have to make it work. Either you make it work or you opt out. So maybe there are many ones. Maybe there are many soulmates, but I personally don't believe there is one soulmate for everybody. Like, I don't think so. You know, people always say, oh, this is so romantic. This is what Bollywood movies and Hollywood movies have been feeding us our whole lives. Oh, your soulmate is one person in the world. I don't think so. I think you have many soulmates.
I like that.
Do you want to ask people questions? Yeah. Do you want in?
Before I let you go, do you think Bollywood movies have ruined it for us?
Yeah, I think Bollywood movies, Disney movies, they give you that romantic feel, like everything is perfect, there is one person for you and all of that. And even I've grown up watching that. And now I do not want to watch that. I want real life. And I think most people want real life now. And I hope that this book becomes a show and it's real life.
Yeah, it does have all the makings of a great show. Last question before I open up to the audiences, of course. Do you think that we should stop looking for the one and just live in the moment?
I think so. It's very hard to do, but I think we should just live in the moment and go with what it is and not judge the people that we date. I'm very guilty of that. So that's why I'm saying that. Like, just say, okay, I'm with this person right now, and let's see how it goes.
Oh, that's brilliant. And now we'll open the floor to questions. Women and men, please ask away. She'll be open to any questions, uncensored.
Uncensored. Oh my God.
And unfiltered, just like her book. Yeah. There's a lady in the front, yes.
Hi.
Hi.
You've talked a little bit about how therapeutic and important the writing process is for you, and also how you already have ideas for future books. Can you give us any hint or preview of anything you're looking forward to writing in the future?
Oh, sweet. Well, I really had so much fun writing this book. I would love to write a sequel to this because I feel like 22 chapters were too short. So I would like to, I would like to write about life and relationships, but this is my first book, so I really want to see how it goes before that. And I would really like to write screenplays as well because I come from a film background. So that would be really nice to write a screenplay next, maybe. Or maybe make this into a screenplay.
Yeah, and how was it therapeutic?
How was it therapeutic? It was... I think when you're writing, and that's how I feel whenever I'm going through. Whenever I'm going through a hard time in life or I'm feeling a little bit sad, I write. And a lot of that has been on plane journeys, like long plane journeys from Bombay to New York, so for example. And I realize that every time I write, I just feel lighter because it's just sorting your brain out. It's sorting my brain out. That is my therapy. So in a way, when I was writing this book, everything was just pouring out. And I really felt like, wow, this is therapy. Is this supposed to be just between me and the book? Or should I be brave and release this? So that's what it was.
There's a question from the gentleman.
Hi.
Hi.
I haven't read the book, so I can't ask any questions from the book. But I knew you from before, from your Instagram page.
Yeah.
You post a lot of travel vlogs and stuff. So, how was your experience in Hungary, going to that hot pool? You went to a hot pool.
Hot pools.
In Hungary, right?
Hungary, oh yeah.
And one more, like, since you are in Kerala, where would you like to go and see? It's God's own country, right?
Yes, it is. And I love Kerala, and Kerala is actually my favorite state in India. Really, the food, the people, the trees, the ambience. Yes, it really is. It's cleaner than the rest of India. The people are more educated. They honk less. There's less traffic. There's less pollution. Everything is much better in Kerala. So believe me, I'm not enjoying living in Mumbai right now. I'm there for my parents because my parents are old. But I am always thinking, like, where would I live later on in life? And Kerala is one big place that I would like to. The only issue is it's very hot. Right? Yes, I really love Kerala. And the people are so warm, welcoming, sweet, lovely. And I have traveled all over Kerala. And I want to keep exploring. And I really would love to live in Kochi. Kochi is such a fun place. So many cafes, lovely. I love Calicut too. It's beautiful. With the beaches, oh my God, it's heaven. It's lovely. If only we could just make it a little cooler.
We also have hot men.
Yeah. I also like the Kerala men, the Malayalam men.
Malayalis.
The Malayalis.
Be
Yes.
careful, you might be a chapter in her book, next book.
Yeah, be careful. Mike? So are you guys going to go to the bookshop and buy my book? That's very important. I hope you do. And then please come to me. I would love to sign it for you.
Yes,
Okay?
there is a signing session
There's a
at
signing
the end of
session.
it as well.
Sorry? Oh, this is the book. All he left me was a recipe. I'll stand up. Okay, this is the book. And when you enter the bookshop, it's on that main thing. You can just ask for it, but it's on the side over there. Okay?
And she's going to sign it as well,
Yeah.
so you can
I'll
get a
be
bit
sitting,
of Shenaz.
just find out where I'll be sitting and I'll sit and sign it. Okay?
Hi, my name is Mohammad Jasir. I'm a student of PKCSES Arts and Science College. I haven't read your book yet. It's the first time I got to know about it, and from what you said, I think I should read it.
Thank you.
And I would definitely do, but I just have one thing to ask. You say about the mistakes and all people make in relationships and all. So how, but some people get stuck in a relationship that never even began. So how do you suggest to get over that?
Some people stop. That means you fall in love with the fantasy and you're not really in the relationship, but you're in love with the person. So the girl goes through that when she's very young. She goes through that where she feels like she's in love with this person and she's in a relationship with the guy, but he has no idea she's in a relationship with him. Is that the question?
Yes.
Yes.
An unrequited love, perhaps.
Yeah. So there is a question in the book that when the unavailable becomes available, does love end? So you have to ask yourself, if you actually got that girl or boy, would you still be in love with them? And really, a relationship takes so much work that it's not at all advisable to be in a relationship with somebody who doesn't want to be in a relationship. She goes through that too, where she tries to convince people to be in a relationship with her. But relationship is all about two people being on board and working really hard at it. I hope I answered your question. This is from my life experiences, okay? I'm no expert.
Yes, of course. You know, it's very interesting, Shenaz, that you say that. You know Seema Auntie from Netflix, where she says the word is compromise. All you girls have to compromise.
Yes, yes.
I love that. What's the difference between compromise and settling, which you address in the book as well?
Yes, I guess it's kind of the same. Compromise is settling in a way. And I think in some extent, if you want a relationship, you have to, I think the word is accept. So recently I went to a wedding and they didn't say, I love you, I take you to be my man and woman. They said, while taking their vows, they said, I accept you. And I think that acceptance is the most important thing to do in relationships, which we all struggle with. Because nobody is perfect, everybody has good and bad. And there are things that don't match up, or we always think, oh, I would have a partner who would be like this, but then in the end, that person is not like that, because we have made a fantasy about that person in our head, but that person's not that. So after 2 years, you realize, okay, so you have to accept. Either you accept or you move on to the next chapter. It's your choice.
That's interesting as well. And Shenaz, we are often given the narrative that women should finally marry. At the end of it, that's your goal, that's your destination, and not the journey itself. Do you think it has changed? What's your take, especially after writing a book on your escapades with men?
Yes, I do not come from that thought. And you know what, in India, in our Indian culture, it's so deeply rooted. Even today, my mom says to me, you know, you don't have two H's in your life. You have everything, you don't have two H's, husband and house.
That is what I think all parents, they speak that language.
And they see it. I'm like, Mom, I'm doing this. I won an award for that. Yeah, but you know what? You're so unlucky in love. You don't have a man. So this is deeply rooted in our Indian culture. You know, unfortunately, we grow up with that thing like, oh, but you know what? If you only had a husband, something happens in my life like, okay, you know, I don't, like the landlord kicked me out and now I'm looking for a place. You need a man in your life. Except that when I've had men in my life, I am the person taking care of them. That's what I realize. You know, a lot of times women think that when they marry, the guy will take care of them. But a lot of times, The women, it's equal. Women are also taking care of them. A lot of times, I feel like I'm the savior in the guy's life. And no, I do not feel like the end all is to get married, because you can be lonely in a marriage too. You can be lonely in a relationship too. And again, I'll come back to what the girl has said, that, my career will not wake up in the middle of the night and leave me for another woman. Or leave me for another man. The career will always stay. Unless you're an actor, then as you get older, your career will leave you, but then you have to find other avenues.
Right, of course. Let's talk about the Bollywood superstar. I'm so intrigued by that chapter. I know she said this is half fiction, half truth. When I was reading that chapter, I remember Googling it and finding out what were you doing in 2002? Who was the biggest star at that point, pumping iron in the gym, the guy she met. And he had major anger issues as well. I kind of believe that. I almost feel, I interview Bollywood stars for a living. They're quite a bit of a diva. I mean, really, they wouldn't be able to take this heat, for instance. They would want 7 fans around them, etc. So,
could you umbrella.
Can you spill the beans on whether that was, or drop a hint on whether that really happened or not? Can you give the farm away?
So every chapter is fact and fiction. So yes, there was a Bollywood actor, and I will not tell you who it is. It's up to you to guess.
Oh, wow. Okay, I have gone through so many names in my head. I've gone through all the guys with a buffed body with anger issues as well. So that was a fun game to play. In fact, one of the best parts about this book is that it just leaves you guessing. And even towards the end, it's not a neat ending. That's another very brave ending to have, where she's not found the right guy. Like if you think of, like, say, generally, if it is fiction, usually the woman would walk into the sunset with her knight in shining armor. In this case, it just ends on a very open note. Yeah. Was that deliberate?
It ends with another breakup. And that's really, but that's how life is, right? Like sometimes you may find the person, but most times you don't, or you just literally accept or adjust or whatever. So it's really, I really wanted to make it like real life. My main thing was like, I don't want to make it like a Bollywood movie or like a Disney movie. I want to make it like real life. I want girls and boys to read this and understand that there's always a next chapter. And you know what? We all fall, we all stumble, we all get cheated on. Even Beyonce got cheated on. So you know what? Definitely I'm going to get cheated on. So everybody gets cheated on. Everybody sometimes, is tempted to cheat or meets someone else and has, even if it's not a physical thing, they may meet someone else and feel like they're mentally cheating. Happens. This is life. And so that's what I wanted to show in this book, like this is life. And this is a modern girl, who's career-oriented, who's lived all over the world, and this is how her life is.
Lovely. And there's also a line in the book that says, Beyonce got cheated on, Halle Berry got cheated on, Jennifer Lopez got cheated on, Salma Hayek got cheated on. Is it fair to assume everyone gets cheated on?
You tell me, if Jennifer Lopez, Salma Hayek, Beyonce, all these people got cheated on, do you think it's fair to assume that maybe you'll also get cheated on?
Yeah, even Shakira
and that's
got...
life.
Yeah, that's true. Even Shakira got cheated on as well. It's very interesting that you talk about cheating and also about the gender construct, Shenaz. You said at one point you rejected a male because you thought you are going to perhaps, fend for him in terms of financially. You just could not wrap your head around that reverse gender role.
No, so the character has done that before, 2-3 times, with Humble, with Black Don't Crack, with many of her boyfriends, where she was supporting him financially. And then towards the last chapter, she meets another guy who she really likes, but then she realizes she's always paying. He doesn't even feel bad about her paying. So that there's no shame in it. So then she thinks, like, can I do this again? And that's the question. Are your past lessons, is it a blessing or is it a curse? Did she leave the guy that she should have been with or that was amazing because she was warned by her past lessons? Or is it a blessing or a curse? And you guys can answer that. I don't even know that answer. So a lot of the questions are open-ended. And it's always cause to conversation. What I feel is I can do a podcast with all these questions, and I am going to start a podcast with all the questions in the book. Like the chapter names are all questions, which we can all have long discussions about.
Of course. And we grew up on Sex and the City. This book also, incidentally, reminds me of Carrie Bradshaw a lot. You know, there's a lot of conversations, a monologue in your own head. What am I doing wrong? There's no cigarette, I suppose. You don't smoke. The protagonist doesn't smoke as much. But was that, did you grow up on a staple of Sex and the City, Bridget Jones?
Yeah. Bridget Jones, Sex and the City. I mean, that's one of the reasons she did not want to settle with Humble, because she was watching, no, not Humble. Sorry. I'm getting confused with the boys. She did not settle with
That happens quite a lot.
She did not settle with, because she was watching Sex and the City and she was like, I want to lead this life. I want to go to New York and lead this life, you know? So yes, very influenced by Sex and the City and Bridget Jones. And I really want to make the show into like an Emily in Paris, Sex and the City, Bridget Jones kind of thing when I make the show.
And what I love about it is also the protagonist is very fallible. She's very vulnerable. Do you want her to be relatable? Because there are women in their 40s or perhaps 30s who have an amazing career, but their parents think they've not made it really. So who are your target audience, Shenaz?
My target audience is actually, because the book goes from when she's 4 to 40. So actually 3 to 40, but 4 to 40 sounds better. But so it's everybody within those age groups, anybody who has that romantic idea of love, anybody who's been in a relationship, anybody who's gone through a breakup, anybody who feels maybe challenged by relationships, maybe women who are in marriages and want to live vicariously through the character, like, okay, or like, you know, maybe they've just been with one person, but they want to see what life on the other side is like. So this is, of course, like a lot of people will say this is mainly for women, but I think it's for women and men, because the character, it could have been a man with the same experiences.
Right. And if this were made to a series, that's the ultimate hope, Netflix, Amazon, or any of those platforms pick it up. Who should play the protagonist?
So it's when she's very young to older, right? So I don't know. I haven't thought about that, but somewhere along when she's older, I would like to be.
Oh, I love it. Oh, so here is the question I had. Why didn't you make it all fact instead of half fiction? Was that in some way where you're just protecting yourself?
No, I wanted to not make it. I don't want it to be a book about me. And I didn't want it to be like I. That's why I wrote it in third person as well. And I wanted to write from my imagination as well. I didn't want to just write one book in my life. I want to write many books in my life. And I want to see like how, you know, I can make up stories as well. And I like using my imagination. I like writing. So it's part fact, part fiction. Some things I embellished. I've taken things from life. I've taken things from my friends' lives. I've taken all the names in the books from characters I know. So yeah, so so that's why I wanted it part, because I would like to write pure fiction books too.
Right, and there's a line in the book that says that I hope the men in my life who are actually in my life read the book. What do you think would be their reactions? Would they sue you? And they wouldn't, because I suppose she's changed all their names. But I think when the man reads it, he would know who he is.
I suppose so, yes, they would. I don't know what their reaction is going to be like. And, you know, some of them are still my friends, and they're like, I support you, I've ordered the book. And I'm like, oh,
It is trending, right, already on Amazon? It's already trending.
Yes, so you can pre-order it on Amazon, and it's already, it's trending and it's a bestseller on Amazon. So wow, I'm so grateful, and I hope all of you buy the book too.
Right, Taylor Swift and all other pop icons says Heartbreak is like their biggest fodder for art. In your case too, for
Absolutely.
fiction.
Every time I've had a breakup, I have done so well in my career, and that's the question the character keeps asking. Can you have the perfect career and the perfect love? Every time she has a good love, her career goes down. Every time she has a great career, the boys in her life go down. Can you actually have both? Does anybody have both? I don't know. If somebody has both, please raise your hands. Hands, both of them. Wow!
There's
Congrats.
one lady, and the guy next to her is the American.
Is the guy next to her?
Yeah. She's in the minority.
Anybody else has the perfect career and the perfect love in the audience? Nobody. So see?
It's just one out of
now
many.
I feel better about myself.
Right. Shenaz, Priyanka Chopra famously said that she never reads her book backwards because she never goes back to her exes. It's a very powerful line, you know, and some
Wow.
women can do it, some women can't. We don't have willpower or whatever. In your case as well, I thought that was so interesting where you said, you know what, sometimes I do reach out to my ex, sometimes they block me. I'm human. Is that what you want to tell the women and men out here?
So it's all normal, right? And yes, sometimes the character has gone back to her ex. And that's why the lesson learned in that chapter is like she didn't learn any lesson. Basically, she learned nothing. The guy made it to the next chapter. But then, of course, it fails because once it's not good and there are reasons that you broke up in the first place, that's going to show up again and again.
Right. And ghosting, for those who are unfamiliar with the term ghosting, it's when a guy or a girl meets you, you guys have sparks, and then suddenly blocks you from Facebook, Instagram, just disappears on you, goes MIA.
It's called love bombing now. There are all these new words which I've included in the book.
Yes,
Yeah,
love bombing.
The guy love bombs you or the girl love bombs you and then suddenly they go MIA.
And he goes MIA, completely missing in action. But ghosting is often referred in the book, and it's so soul-destroying, right? I'm sure that is one of the realities of the current dating minefields that we have.
Absolutely. There's ghosting, but there's ghosting also in like ghosting in your relationships. There can be ghosting in friendships. There can also be ghosting in careers. Sometimes you may message somebody for a job and they won't reply. That's also ghosting.
Yes.
But yes, ghosting is very common and we all go through it. Again, I can ask you, anybody in the audience who has not been ghosted?
I've been ghosted.
Yeah, who's not been, okay. Who's been ghosted in the audience?
Who's been blocked?
Who's been blocked,
I see
ghosted,
some
nobody's
guys-
replied, everybody, right? Like that's how life is.
Right, of course. What kind of mental space are you on? We have very limited time now. What kind of space are you in right now after the book has been launched, etc.? And tell me about the men in your life. This is fiction, eh? Fact.
What do you mean? Tell me about the men in your life.
Right now, are you happy? Are you in a good space?
I'm very happy and I'm very excited about the book because I thought about writing this book, I think 6 years ago. And then it's finally, I can't believe it's actually here, you know. And I started writing it maybe 6 years ago. Then I was living in America at that time. Then I moved back to India and suddenly I started this travel blogging and it took off and I got very busy with that and I stopped writing the book. And then last 2 years I took it up again and it's right here, you know, and this is just like a lot of blood, sweat, tears, not just writing it. This is blood, sweat, tears of life, of real life, you know. So I hope people like it and I hope to see all of you at the signing and I can sign the book for you.
Yeah, and would you call this, I know you've worn several hats, Shenaz. You've been a VJ long before the word vivacious and Instagram was like a trend. You were a VJ, etc. You've been an actress. You've written your own shows. You've lived in New York alone. But was writing the toughest thing for you, the most soul-destroying process?
No, writing was the easiest thing for me. Actually, I really enjoy writing. And all through my life, whenever I felt sad, happy, anything happened, writing has always been my therapy. I've traveled a lot and a lot of times I've been very lonely. I know loneliness as the constant partner and the thing that has always kept me going has been writing. Whenever I've gone through anything in life, I've just written and I feel better. So writing is actually not soul destroying but soul enhancing process. So that I really love writing and I really hope I'm a good writer because I don't know yet. so I will know soon since the book has just hit the stands.
I've read the book, it's very conversational, and she has not over-intellectualized breakups, which is a great thing coming. These days we do have, like you said, to label every relationship. Are you the narcissist? Is he the narcissist? Who is the narcissist, etc. You have kept it very simple, and I think that's the biggest takeaways. And like she said in her book, I think there's no perfect ending or a fairy tale ending, isn't it?
There's no perfect ending ever. There's always, that's how life is. You just got to make it work, you know. And what I think the character and me have in common and what you see in this book a lot is resilience. And I think that's one of the most important things we need in life is resilience. And the character has resilience. Even when she's at her rock bottom, there's a next chapter. And that's really how we need to get through life. When people say, what do you look for? Even in a partner or a friend, it's really resilience. Because if that person can get up and stand up and brush everything off and take a shower and put on some red lipstick and some heels and walk out of the house, that's really what I hope the messages of the book.
Yes, she may be the worst breakupper. She actually, I think that's a term you coined, calling herself the even after every breakup, she hasn't really been good at handling it. But I think now you have kind of made peace with it, haven't you?
No, I am still the worst breaker-upper in the world. It's very hard to have breakups. Even if you've had 22, 25, 30 breakups, it's still extremely hard. In fact, it gets harder, which is why I wrote the book, to remind me and you that there's always a next chapter.
I love it. And on that note, I really hope everybody finds their imperfect, perfect ending, I suppose. Thank you so much, Shenaz, for writing a book so openly from a very true space. It's not easy to write about your stumbles that you take with men or otherwise, or career, but she has done it with such grace and grit, and we really hope you get your life lessons. It's a crash course on what not to do, and she's done a brilliant job of it. Thank you, Shenaz, for this book.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you.